Sorry, this is our official Thanksgiving live stream with already many turkey technical difficulties, but hope you all are doing great and you're having an awesome Thanksgiving wherever you are. If you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you're having a great whatever today is, Thursday, I believe. So there are a lot of people who aren't able to go see their families, and I figured maybe folks would be spending the day alone, and there's a lot of crappy stuff happening in the world right now, and so why not go back to some of my favorite stories as a TV reporter and show you all some of the stuff that I used to do and the things that used to make me smile and all that good stuff. And I figured, hey, at the very least, we could spend some of Thanksgiving together and have a few smiles along the way. So anyway, I am just going to take a look at, see if we have any questions. So that last video that we just played was a little kid named Aiden. And he is, I think at the time he was 6 years old and was an aspiring farmer. So I did the story about him as a farmer. So I figured that would be a good video to start with, though we did not intend to start initially with the video. We were going to start with myself on camera, but that's okay. We're still figuring out how to work all this. Anyway, I figured start with the farmers because that's who makes the food, and we do a lot of eating on Thanksgiving. So the next video I wanted to show you all is a story I did when I was in Tampa, Florida. I was a general assignment reporter at the time. And so, hey, Matt, how's it going? I was covering basically, I mean, I did a lot of animal stories just because I loved animals, but I didn't start covering the environment until I moved to Seattle. But when I was in Tampa, I was given the assignment of a story about a guy who called into our newsroom, and he had a dog named Abby. He was blind, and Abby was his seeing eye dog. And they were walking down the sidewalk, and somebody drove off the street onto the sidewalk and hit Abby and basically left her there for dead. And this guy can't drive or anything. And he didn't have the money to pay for her to have the surgery that she needed. So I literally threw this guy and his dog in my news truck, which basically violated all of the rules of my station, because you're not allowed to have people in the vehicle that were not on your insurance. Not to mention, I'm sure it violated some ethics policies of a journalist, like taking her subject to the hospital. But I threw ethics out the window for that part of the day and just got them to the animal clinic. And we promised basically the veterinarians that we would make up for the money if they would do the work for free. And they were more than willing and generous to do that. So they did the surgery on this dog. They saved her life. And this was the follow-up story when we went to see Terry, who is the owner, see Abby for the first time after she had this life-saving surgery. And, you know, what was really cool about this is, besides the fact that the veterinarian clinic did this for free, was that when we told the public about it, the phones nearly broke at the veterinary clinic. There were so many people calling in to donate, and they donated so much money, way more money than the clinic needed to pay back what they did for Abby, that all these other needy families got free care for their pets. So it was just a really great story, and I think happened actually around Christmas time, Thanksgiving, Christmas. So let's all cross our fingers that when I hit this button, the right video plays. This should be Blind Man's Dog. Here we go.
And it is all thanks to the generosity of strangers across the Bay Area. Abby's owner contacted us when he ran out of money to pay for her medical bills. And after we aired our story last week, donations paid off the entire cost of Abby's treatment within hours.
Every day, every night, it's all about Abby.
Clutching a dirty tennis ball and raggedy rope toy,
I sleep with them every night.
Terry Elric only has to wait a few more hours. And so does his guide dog, Abby.
And I would keep praying that Abby comes home.
A week and a half ago, a car hit Abby in her front yard and sped off. Legally blind, Terry thought he'd not only lose his second pair of eyes, but his best friend. Now, just feet from the spot where Abby almost died, a sign thanks strangers for their prayers.
Abby would have died. They knew when you picked her up that she only had a couple hours to live.
Terry called us with no money to pay, so we called Blue Pearl. They agreed to see Abby immediately for free. But soon after our story aired, strangers covered the entire cost. And after a couple hours of surgery to repair her gallbladder and days of recovery, Abby's finally ready to go home.
I can't wait. I cannot wait.
And Terry is seconds away from seeing her.
Oh, thank you.
There's already a Christmas tree ready for Abby's return, and under the star, beneath the sign, "We love you, Abby," there's a blanket that reads, "Home for the holidays."
Say thank you. Can you say thanks? There she is, everybody. I can't say no more. You love me?
Now, doctors were still a little concerned today because Abby has refused to eat for almost a week, but we did just get off the phone with her owner, and he tells us she scarfed down an entire can of chicken the second she got home. Also, after a belated Thanksgiving feast tomorrow, Terry plans to serve as an advocate for other pet owners who can't afford medical care for their animals.
The cool thing about that story with Abby is that we were able to get all the other TV stations to come cover her release from the hospital. And so it was just this cool collaboration with the other TV stations, the other TV crews, and got a lot of coverage for this dog, who then ended up, like I was saying, raised money for other pet owners and who couldn't afford medical care. Happy Thanksgiving, Woody. Thank you so much for the super chat. I did want to say that today, I'm going to donate super chats to Orphan Relief and Rescue and Vision House. Orphan Relief and Rescue is a group that I've been a part of, just helping out. I MC their events every once in a while. I've done that. I have donated, media trainings for them. They actually rescue children from trafficking situations in West Africa. Some pretty terrible situations, and these kids unbelievably blossom within just a few months of being in their care. And so they also help mothers create businesses with micro loans so that they don't feel like their only recourse in their extreme poverty is to sell their children. It's a pretty rough life over there where she is I think she's in Liberia right now. And some really terrible stories, but just also a testament to how amazingly resilient human beings are when given the opportunity to thrive and when they take that opportunity, because these kids become doctors and lawyers and they stay in Africa and West Africa where they're from, and then they change their communities for the better. So again, super chats are going to go to Orphan Relief and Rescue. And then Vision House is a local organization in the Seattle area that helps homeless families that have children. Seattle obviously is dealing with a lot of significant issues right now with the drug problem, but there are a lot of families, especially as the cost of living goes up in Seattle, that can't afford what it's like anymore in Seattle. And so I've been a longtime donor for Vision House because the idea of a kid having to sleep in a car really is sad to me. And so whatever I can do to help. So I'm going to donate super chats to those two organizations today. So let's see here, everybody. Do we want to see another story? Peter says, I miss seeing you in Tampa, Florida. Well, isn't it awesome? You can still see me here on YouTube. I know there are a few less technical difficulties in Tampa. Only a few. Because I'm going to get this thing down. All right. So my most viral video ever has been, well, besides my Antifa video, that probably was my most viral. But that was after I had left TV news. But as a TV reporter, my most viral video was about a sea otter who developed asthma because of wildfire smoke and had to be trained to use an inhaler. And so the Seattle Aquarium worked really hard with this sea otter to teach her how to, inhale an inhaler, which is not the easiest thing to do. It was really cute to watch. And so I actually revisited the sea otter for the wildfire season, I think the following year, just to see how she was doing. Her name's Mishka. And I don't know what you think are the cutest animals. Tell me in the comments section, but sea otters are definitely in my top 5. The reason I like sea otters the most, and Lynn, if you're watching this from the other room, could you bring in Ophelia, the sea otter from the Seattle Aquarium, please? Because I would like to have her at the end of the next video. They keep their food in their armpits, which is tactically amazing, but also just the cutest thing ever. They put their little clams and stuff in their armpits, and they just pull their snacks out of their armpits. It's and they hold hands when they sleep. It just doesn't get any cuter than that. Thanks, Matt, so much. Happy to support your generosity. Love the special content on Patreon. Yeah, hey, guys, head over to Patreon. Oh, there's Ophelia. So that's, she's from the Seattle Aquarium. And actually, Lily, our daughter, was smaller than her when she was born and now is about her size. So she's really growing. And anyway, thank you guys for the super chats, and thanks, Matt, for that one. Again, super chats going to Orphan Relief and Rescue and Vision House. So let's watch Mishka the sea otter.
Good. So actually, if you want to come stand right here, you're welcome to do that.
I first met Mishka in 2015 when Julie Carpenter and aquarium staff taught her to do something incredible.
Target. Good. Maybe step back just a little bit. There you go.
Mishka,
And then I'm going to ask her to do the inhaler.
developed asthma during wildfire season.
Mishka, inhaler. Breathe.
Try to watch this
Breathe.
without smiling.
Breathe.
I dare you.
Breathe.
The cute factor
Breathe.
is unmatched.
Breathe. Good girl.
But sea otters are generally one of the cutest to watch. Turns out they're also really smart.
She was a superstar. She's very patient, and we have some really creative staff that made that work. Anything in their exhibit they're very curious. They're gonna take it and play with it. So we had to really teach her that this isn't a toy. This is training time. It's school time now.
Here's Mishka back in 2015. Staff first taught her to touch the inhaler and then to breathe into it.
Good.
3 years later, Mishka's an inhaler master. And good thing, too, as thick wildfire smoke is back, threatening her health again.
She's her normal feisty self.
Dr. Caitlin Hadfield says they're monitoring Mishka along with the other animals at the aquarium. And it turns out Mishka can now do a lot more than just use an inhaler.
They've also been able to train her to come up onto an x-ray plate. And so that gives us the chance to take x-rays of her chest while she just sits there, which is a wonderful way to monitor it. And they're also training her so that we can listen to her lungs at all times.
Mishka is famous for her inhaler trick, but she doesn't know that, and neither do her buddies, none of whom have asthma like she does. But it appears Mishka doesn't mind being special. After all, the inhaler just means extra clams. In Seattle, I'm Allison Morrow, King 5 News.
So the aquarium says its fish are the ones who come in contact most with changes in air quality since outside air is blown into their tanks. But so far they haven't noticed any behavioral effects among the fish from all of that wildfire smoke.
Here we go. All right, back on. Shout out to Mark Wright, my former colleague, who is an anchor over at King 5. And how cute were those sea otters? See, I told you with the clams, they're amazing. Okay, so actually, I would just be curious to know what you all think about the wildfire side of things. Had you ever heard of animals and how they're affected by the smoke? Because that was something that was very new to me as an environmental reporter. I never really thought about that. I knew that, their habitat could be burned down and whatnot, but I never had really thought about the smoke factor. So just curious. Okay, so the next video I want to show you all is about this guy in Tacoma, which is just south of Seattle. And he started to participate in kind of, I think it's an international movement, definitely a national movement called the Food is Free movement. And it just encourages people who have a garden, or maybe you're a farmer and you have extras, to just put it out for your neighbors and to kind of build a community around food and, healthy food, especially produce and whatnot, things that people are growing in their own backyards, and to just kind of help out, especially like in a time we're dealing with right now. I'm sure that the Food is Free movement is even more popular. I thought it was awesome because it's like free organic vegetables and you get to meet your neighbor. And so he was really an inspiration for me. We don't have a garden right now. When we had to move after our latest issue with, you probably have seen the video, maybe you haven't, I don't know, on our channel, my channel, about us having to leave Central Washington and move to Eastern Washington because our landlord sold the property in the middle of the pandemic and everything. But back then, we were just about to, we had planted a garden, actually. We were just about to get to the point of harvesting it. We were really excited, but then we had to move, so we left the garden for the next tenant, the new owner of the house, and I'm sure she ate to her heart's content, but we will have a garden next spring, I promise. And so anyway, this is about the Food is Free movement. Here we go.
I grow food to give away.
For David Thompson, this is not just a garden.
This is all the stuff that I planted late in the summer.
These are not just vegetables.
It got bigger and bigger and bigger until I got this thing. It's almost 4,000 square feet.
There is a transcendence here, something bigger than even the sunflowers.
Some people just say thank you. They'll yell it from the street out there and say thank you.
Thompson is part of the national Food is Free project. The idea is as simple as planting a seed, grow a little extra, and give it away.
Really, it's hard to get fresh produce. If you don't have any money and you're light on money and stuff, I have chickens here, so I give away eggs as well. That way you build community, your neighbors start to talk to each other, and the idea is that it'll ripple outwards and people will start putting up their own tables out front.
Thompson lives in a high-poverty area of Tacoma. The grocery stores, he says, don't have a large variety of organic, fresh vegetables, but he has more than he needs.
I'll sit it out here, people drive by and they'll pick it up. I don't put bags out here so somebody doesn't pick up all of it.
He's already noticed at least one other neighbor setting out a table. Just like a meal, the movement is meant to be shared, a way to bridge differences, because no one is exactly alike, but everyone has to eat.
Food could do that. Food and growing your own stuff and giving it away could build that community.
In Tacoma, I'm Allison Morrow, King 5 News.
All right, and Satchel says there's a place in my neighborhood that'll leave bread ingredients out for anyone, rye, etc. That's pretty cool. Greetings from Chile. Hello. Wish we had your equivalent over here in the UK. Thank you. That's very kind. Not a Fox fan, but switching to the 5, I'm in love with Dana Perino. Happy Thanksgiving to you and the family, Allison. Journalists like you are amazing, rare, and awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving from England. Thank you. Great storytelling. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Oh, yeah, sure wish I could read lips. Looks like a great story because I didn't have my mic unmuted. Okay, so the next one is about a bear. As you, again, may know, I was an environmental reporter, so I covered a lot of wildlife stories, and this was a pretty fun one. I was told, actually a lot of us knew at the time, but we got a call from a neighbor on this island. So if you know the Seattle area, Puget Sound is the water body that's kind of in between the mainland of Washington, then kind of the peninsula, and then on the other side of the peninsula is the Pacific Ocean, but we have Puget Sound that kind of cuts in between the peninsula of Washington and sort of the other side of the mainland. And there are a ton of islands in the Puget Sound area, and it's not uncommon for bears to swim, but it isn't common for bears to swim like this. This bear was a particularly special bear, and we're pretty sure, I think he was a he, was looking for a lady friend, but unlikely found one, but in his adventure really took hold of the news headlines. And so you're going to see how far he swam, and the video of him outside this one person's house, just kind of enjoying the bird feeder, which I have to say, back when I was a wildlife reporter, the wildlife officials, their arch nemesis was the bird feeder, because bears love to eat bird feeders, as did a lot of other wildlife, which unfortunately then ended up getting too accustomed to humans, then sometimes either had to be relocated or in more unfortunate cases had to be euthanized. So anyway, consider if you're in an area where there's a lot of wildlife, whether having a bird feeder is a good idea. But anyway, this is some cool video of this bear, and just let me know what you think about his journey. It was pretty fun to watch.
Evening Magazine's profile of the San Juan Islands shows what they're typically known for: leisure, beauty, and recreation. But why should humans have all the fun?
I looked out the window, and there he was, helping himself to birdseed out of the feeder.
I spoke with Janice Williams by phone today. She and her husband videoed a bear that's made quite a journey to get to their Orcas Island backyard.
He did not seem like any kind of aggressive bear. He just looked cuddly.
WDFW reports one of the first sightings in early April on the east side of Camano Island. The bear walked west and swam across Saratoga Passage, landing on Whidbey Island. Then he walked west, where he was sighted at Fort Casey State Park, then turned north and was spotted again in the Penn Cove area, continued walking until he reached water again, at which point he swam Skagit Bay and landed on Fidalgo Island. He continued walking up toward Anacortes, where he hit the water again and swam to Guaymas Island. From there, his journey is a bit unknown, but wildlife officials believe he swam and island hopped until he turned up on Orcas Island at Olga, which is where the Williams family took this video.
Well, they're definitely looking for love in all the wrong places, because there are no girl bears here.
No girl bears, or any bears for that matter. The only other bear spotted recently on Orcas was 2 years ago, and it made daily appearances in this exact same spot, where Williams and her husband let the state trap the bear and relocate it to another area. But this bear is moving too quickly for wildlife officials to catch him.
I've heard that even in bear country, people can live their entire lives and never see a bear. but this makes number 2 for us in 2 years.
After 2 bear visitors in an area without bears, William says it may be she has the best bird feed on the island, or maybe it's something else.
I just like to think that they like me.
On Orcas Island, I'm Allison Morrow, King 5 News.
All right, I'm sure that they like her. But okay, so that was cool. That was a really fun story. One thing that my husband ran in and told me to say to everybody in regards to that video is, if you notice, I had to put blurred video on either side because she was using her cell phone shooting up and down like this. So if you ever want to send video into your local news station, turn your camera like this and hold it horizontal, not vertical. I know it seems more intuitive, like you're just like, oh, you hold your phone the way that you would hold it normally if you're talking, but to shoot the video. But if you do that, then it doesn't fit the editing screen. So just a plea for all journalists out there, could you please turn your cell phone sideways when you shoot your viral video and send it into your local news station? Thank you very much. PSA over now. All right, we are going to now talk about another story that I loved covering. It was one of my favorite stories. Again, this goes back to Tampa. The last couple have been in the Seattle area for King 5. The next one is back to ABC Action News, WFTS, which is who I worked for 3 years in Tampa. This dog was incredible. I swear. No, I did not actually submit. I was going to say, somebody told me to submit it for an Emmy. I don't think I ever did. I think because I did that story and the Abby the dog story, which was in the beginning of this, at the same time, I love the Abby story a lot more, so I submitted for that for awards. But this one, I think probably would have gone bonkers because it was incredible. This is a dog that couldn't walk and now is going to walk because of a human that made it braces. It was pretty incredible to watch. And so his name was Spencer. He's a bulldog. He was likely abused as a puppy. Maybe somebody hit him in a car or stomped on him. That's what the veterinarian said, but basically crushed his back legs. Couldn't walk and needed braces, and this local clinic that made prosthetics and braces for veterans, a lot of veterans actually, decided to take on the challenge of making these for a dog. Okay, here we go. This is Dog's New Legs, featuring Spencer.
West Coast Brace and Limb is filled with stories of triumph. Children, combat veterans living normal lives thanks to a laboratory equipped for the most challenging of requests. Like the one they just received.
We'll try it and see what happens.
Jason Red just made these molds of his patient's paralyzed legs in order to make new ones. And his patient, Spencer, is minutes away from trying them on.
He doesn't know any different. He doesn't know he's different than other dogs.
Spencer's owners found him on their front doorstep, his back legs completely paralyzed. Their veterinarian suspects someone likely dropped or stomped on him as a puppy.
So he doesn't feel this at all. This one has been a problem.
Because Spencer drags and injures his paws, he's never even gone on a real walk.
His whole life, he just spends at my feet, looking up and crying, pick me up, pick me up, pick me up, take me here, take me there.
Jason's never fitted a dog before. He's not even absolutely sure this will work.
With people, you can kind of tell them, please sit still, I gotta hold it in this position.
Now equipped with custom braces and green Crocs, it's up to the 2-year-old bulldog to take the first step. And right away, he does. In fact, Spencer ran up and down the clinic hallway so many times he had to stop for water.
Now he can go off and explore and get into trouble like a normal dog.
And as if walking out from his appointment wasn't enough, he came home to his first walk with his brother, Pork Chop, the blind pig.
The happiest creature you'll ever meet.
Spencer was amazing, and that was so much of a great payoff at the end to then follow him home and find out that he has a brother who's a blind pig. You don't really get too much more Florida than that, but that's why all the great stories come out of Florida, am I right? Paul, thank you for the super chat. Keep up the good work, Allison. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family from England. Thank you so much. Again, donating super chats to Orphan Relief and Rescue. They rescue kids from trafficking situations in West Africa. And then Vision House, which is an organization that helps find housing and social services for families who are homeless with children. So thank you guys for your generosity. Okay, our final video is one that really was I will never forget the story. I mean, I'm never going to forget the ones that I just showed you, but this was really an incredible feat. So I followed this sea turtle multiple times through his journey from being rescued to being released back into the ocean. He was found very close to he was found beached, basically in Oregon, and he had what they called cold shock, which is, frankly, it's like basically hypothermia for a turtle. What they were thinking was happening was that with some of the sort of warmer currents these turtles were swimming in, that they would end up north of where they really should be. And then they don't know how to get back because they end up in these colder currents after they follow that warmer current up. And the cold water is disorienting for them because obviously their body temperature is not regulated like ours is. And so he washed up basically in Oregon, essentially near death. Somebody called wildlife officials and told them about him. The Seattle Aquarium ended up getting involved and naming him Tucker because he liked to tuck his tail, and took him in and tried to save his life. Now, what they found out about him was not just that he had cold shock, but because of his, I guess, had similar issues that a person who has the bends, essentially a diver, had gas bubbles in his abdomen, and because of that, he couldn't dive anymore. So he was having, he was having to try too hard to dive down for food, and they were nervous that if they had just released him, even though now he was over his cold shock, that he wouldn't be able to eat, and that he would also be, much more susceptible to predators. So they had to kind of figure out how they were going to treat him, and he essentially was like a human who had been suffering from the bends. It's interesting. My husband was a dive instructor in the Marine Corps and had to take people into hyperbaric treatment if they had issues, and that's exactly what they decided to do with Tucker. So he was the first sea turtle that, well, really, they were saying that he was the first sea turtle in the country or maybe in the world who humans had accompanied through hyperbaric treatment. So we literally took Tucker to the local hospital in downtown Seattle. He was put in a hyperbaric chamber with the veterinarian and with a human dive doctor, hyperbaric doctor. And they did this 2-hour treatment just like they would do for a human. Woody, thanks again for the super chat. I know you have a family and life, but do you plan to have a set schedule for your live streams in the future? I will get to that after this video. Thank you for asking. It's a great question. And then Corn Pop, thank you. $25. All right, this is all going to Vision House and Orphan Relief and Rescue, so thank you guys for your generosity. Happy Thanksgiving. God bless you and your family. Awesome. Okay, I will answer the question about the live streams and the set schedule and craziness in life in a second. Let's watch Tucker the turtle, shall we? For months, Tucker has been confined to this tank, acting like a normal turtle. But now he's about to make medical history.
Whoa, and the camera got wet.
Tucker is an Olive Ridley sea turtle. He was found stranded on the Oregon coast, and the Seattle Aquarium staff noticed Tucker spends too much time at the surface.
So a normal sea turtle would be completely submerged, easily just sitting at the bottom. And then they'd have to work to get to the surface to breathe. And as you can see with Tucker, he actually sits at the surface and has to work to get down below the water. And that's the problem he has. Okay, there we go. Can you grab his foot?
Veterinarian Lasana Lahner discovered Tucker has air bubbles stuck in his body. It's a problem human divers face. And so Tucker is about to go to a human hospital.
All right, so we'll want his head facing forward. It's new and exciting, and we're so appreciative that Virginia Mason is allowing us to do this, and we hope that it helps Tucker. We don't know for sure that it will, but we're giving it our best chance.
Virginia Mason's been here for 40 years. This is the first turtle that I'm aware of. It's my first turtle. We do treat divers, about 40 divers a year, with gas bubble disease, which is some variant of what he has. We use it for decompression sickness, carbon monoxide poisoning. We use it for certain bad infections. We also use it for people who've had cancer treatment with radiation and help rebuild the tissue, and diabetic wounds. But I don't get emails very often for turtles with this condition.
40 feet, ladies and gentlemen, 40.
Dr. James Holm is an expert in hyperbaric medicine.
Just passing 45 feet.
The hyperbaric chamber will be Tucker's home for the next 2 hours. Slowly, the air pressure increases.
I'm still just going at 5 feet per minute.
As if Tucker were diving in the ocean. His heart rate is monitored, confusing the machine. It's so much slower than a human's.
It's thinking that someone is not alive anymore. We have right now 3 beats per minute.
The air pressure continues to rise.
Ready.
Dr. Lahner and Dr. Home use headsets to communicate to a command post, keeping watch, reminding them to breathe for Tucker.
That's a 1 minute warning for a breath.
As he begins to feel the same pressure he would in the wild. Right now, the air inside this chamber is as if Tucker were 60 feet deep in the ocean. It's a dive Tucker hasn't made in months, unable to return to the ocean until his buoyancy reboots.
He's stable, his heart rate is stable, so this is the best we can hope for.
But there are no guarantees. It's the first time a turtle with Tucker's condition has undergone hyperbaric treatment. The pressure inside, combined with the oxygen Tucker's breathing, should push out the air bubbles inside his body. The door opens and Tucker is wheeled out.
What a good boy.
It's obvious right away. The 66-pound turtle is ready to get back to the water.
Yep, easy boy.
5 hours after leaving the aquarium, Tucker returns to his tank.
1, 2, 3.
It's not immediately clear if anything's changed. Tucker doesn't know he made history. He just knows it's time for a snack and a breath of fresh air. In Seattle, Allison Morrow, King 5 News.
So that was one of my favorite stories really of all time because I got to follow Tucker from the beginning. Like I said, originally when he was getting his x-rays and his CAT scans. And then I actually got to fly with the Coast Guard in this huge C-130. I had the whole back to myself with just like 2 other people and another sea turtle and Tucker. And we flew down to San Diego where he finished up his rehab at SeaWorld. And then they released him with a GPS on his back and followed him until that GPS lost its battery. So I don't know if you're out there, Tucker, but happy Thanksgiving. It was amazing to cover that story, and he survived. And it was just such a testament to how humans really can do some amazing things when they put their minds to it. And there are still really awesome people out there. And that was one of my favorite things about being a wildlife reporter was that you saw people really take initiative for some of, you know, the overlooked species, I guess. People who were willing to work sleepless nights and put, you know, their finances on the line and do things without any recognition just because they believed it was the right thing to do. And it was just really amazing to be around those people and just to see the collaboration. And so I really loved covering Tucker. Funny stories about one particular event. My husband went with me once on an autopsy, actually a necropsy, as they say, for a sea lion, this huge sea lion in, it was, I think, Port Townsend. It was dying. And so the veterinarian, actually in that last story with Tucker, she was called out there to check him out. And there was really no way to help him. So she decided to euthanize him, unfortunately. But they did a necropsy to see what killed him. And they, you know, did the whole thing right there on the beach. And at one point, they had to remove his penis bone. Literally, they took apart the entire animal and handed that to Lynn. I remember my husband, they handed it, they're like, can you hold this for a second? And, you know, first it was just like, okay, this is kind of weird. Like, this is not a part of a sea lion that you would normally ever think about and you're actually hold. And it turns out what ended up killing that sea lion was herpes and penile cancer, caused by that by the herpes virus, which was, I believe, at the time, the first documented case of that. Also, I got to see. So that was totally bizarre. I didn't know, first off, that wildlife get sexually transmitted diseases, but apparently they do, and they can get cancer from herpes. So that was fascinating to me. So anyway, that's just another story. I did not share that one. I totally forgot about it until Lynn brought that up. Are you allowed to post any of your past stories, or are they under copyright? It would be great to see more of these on your channel. Yes, if I just posted them straight without commentary, it would be a copyright violation. YouTube allows for you to do something that they call transformative work, which is like what you'll see a lot of YouTubers do. They'll play a few clips of something and then talk about it. That's how you kind of get away with the uploading of content that is copyrighted by somebody else. When I was an employee of King 5 or ABC Action News, any of those other places, they owned everything that I did. You know, they actually owned my hair, technically. My hair. Funny story, since we're all just, you know, hanging out casually here, casual Thursday, for Thanksgiving. One of my bosses in Tampa, she used to get really frustrated that I would come to work with wet hair and that I didn't come to work camera ready, as they say. But I didn't like to spend hours at home of my free time getting ready to be on camera. So I kind of always battled that. And she got annoyed, very annoyed one day, annoyed enough that she pulled me into the office and she said that I needed to start coming to work camera ready. And I asked her, well, wait a second, you know, my hair, it's technically like a tool for my job, right? I mean, it's part of my equipment. And she was like, yes. And I said, okay, so if it's like my camera or microphone, right? It's like, it's just as important, like my hair, my makeup, all that stuff to you guys. It's just as important. Yeah. What's the point? And I said, okay, so like if it's just as important as my camera and my microphone, and it's so important that you can even tell me what to do with it. Like they could tell me to cut it. They could tell me how to style it. They could tell me it was owned. Literally my whole image was owned by the TV station. She's like, yeah. Get to your point. And I was like, then I'm on the clock when I'm touching my hair, because it's just like touching my camera, my microphone. If it's a part of my job, you guys should be paying me to do my hair. And she did not like that answer, but I'll tell you what, I never got pestered for doing my hair before work ever again. She accepted that as the answer. She did say, when I'm a muckety muck in New York someday, I can argue that, but to get out of her office. But she never pulled me into her office again for that. So let's see, shave it, LOL. Probably not going to do that. It's pretty cold here in Washington State. Definitely need the hair. Happy to hear you're now on your own hair. Yes. Or I own my hair now. Yes, I do. Let's see here. Is there a problem with the koala bear? I don't know what that means. Let's see. You are insane. Love you. Date me. Remember me. Okay. Sorry, I'm taken. All right. So any other questions? How's everybody's Thanksgiving going? I'm probably going to eventually wrap this up. I got to start cooking. If you saw my community page, we have a tiny chicken because I forgot to order a turkey in time. So that's okay. We'll just not have a ton of leftovers, but who needs all that? We're going to make it work even with our tiny Thanksgiving chicken. Again, thank you all for the super chats. Again, donating the super chats to Orphan Relief and Rescue and Vision House. And I'll put a link. I forgot to do that earlier, but I will add a link to both of those organizations in the description of the video. So if you're interested in donating or just checking them out, you can do that. There's also descriptions for supporting my work in the future. If you want to become a Patreon, that's also fun because I post some extra content there and it's a little easier to get a hold of me because the comment section's kind of, sometimes it's out of control in a good way and sometimes in a bad way, depending on the video. And so I don't necessarily read all the comments, but I do try to get to most of them. Tell them about your bear investigation. Okay, I'll tell you all that briefly, but it's not the happiest story. So I investigated the Department of Wildlife here in Washington State for a bear hunting program that they had going on timber farms, essentially. There is this sort of phenomenon that happens in the spring, especially. Bears come out of hibernation. They're hungry. There isn't always a ton to eat for vegetation, especially if they happen to wake up near a tree farm where it's sort of manicured specifically for the trees. And so they'll sort of, scrape the bark of the trees. They get this cadmium underneath. It's a syrup that they like to eat. But that gets the bears in trouble because they are eating the profits essentially of the tree farm. So there was this program to manage bears on these properties. The problem, however, was that 20 years ago, Washington State passed a law outlawing the use of bait and hounds unless there was a problem bear, for instance, and a wildlife official then use these protocol to get a problem bear. Unfortunately, what my investigation kind of revealed was that it had sort of become this secret underground program that almost more resembled like an elite hunting club than it did, like everybody could get a license, for instance. It was fair game. You as a hunter could go out and get your license and work on, that bear population that they said was hurting the tree farms. It was kind of like you knew somebody, you could get in, you get your permit, you could basically, essentially the argument was that what had begun as a program to sort of manage the specific problem had become an illegal, in some cases, elite hunting club that the state was sort of turning a blind eye to. And I'm not an anti-hunter at all, but I do think people should follow the law, or you should change the law if the law is bad for people. I just tend to be someone who like doesn't think that if, a lot of times the state, if you are kind of like, if you're in an authority position in the government and the law is bad and people don't challenge it, then what ends up happening is, like, if you're just kind of secretly like, well, we're just going to pretend this law doesn't exist. What I've noticed as a wildlife reporter was that it ended up being something that in some cases the more powerful people were allowed to break those laws, but the average person was held accountable to them. And I'm sure that happens in a lot of other cases. You could probably think of similar situations. It definitely happened with the environment. So in my opinion, it was kind of like, well, if it's a bad law and it needs to be readdressed, then that's what people need to do. Unfortunately, what, like I said, often happens is that, you'll have sort of this group of people that all know each other and they get to break the law behind the scenes. Have we seen that with COVID? I don't know. I'm just going to let you guys hash that out in the chats. But then the average Joe is held to the law, and that just ends up not being very fair, in my opinion, just my opinion. So anyway, that actually went through the court systems the last couple of years, and a judge finally decided that parts of that program that I had investigated were found to be in violation of the law that had been passed by Washington state citizens 20 years ago. So anyway, that was a long story, and it took a year of my life to do. It was like my first really big investigation, and it really gave me a lot of respect for investigative reporters because they work really hard. In fact, there's a lot of negativity, obviously, around mainstream media. We talk about that on this channel. I think it's really unfortunate because there's so many great investigative journalists out there who are really more and more getting cut from their programs because the TV stations, for instance, just are deciding that, the faster, shorter stuff is better, and hiring younger and losing the relationships that these investigative reporters have built over the years in their communities. They're in my opinion, like, they are the greatest loss to journalism, is an investigative reporter, because they do, like, they're not on Twitter screaming at people. They're not on Twitter just, virtue signaling or posturing. They're actually doing work. They're meeting with sources in the middle of the night sometimes. For my bear investigation, we had people that we had to, do this sort of silhouette for their face and change their voice and everything because they were nervous. These were hunters, for instance, in the program who were kind of whistleblowers talking about it, and they were nervous for their lives and their livelihood. And so, like, doing that work is so important, but unfortunately it's just been part of the slashed budgets of whether it's a newspaper or TV station, and then they're allocating that money to other stuff that they think is working. I don't know, you guys can be the judge if it is, just the sort of the franchises of like the just, fun, happy, or in some cases, the just really like sensational, grab you by the throat and make you pay attention stuff. Thank you, Lynn, for the super chat, and happy Thanksgiving. It looks like my brother might be on here somewhere. So, hey, Scott, if you're there, happy Thanksgiving. Let's see. It says, you just described most politicians, particularly modern Dems, laws for thee, but not for me. It's actually like tossing a cigarette butt out the window. Trash humans. I sold my house to spend Thanksgiving at mom's. I agree 100%. I agree. Okay. Yes. Allison, your brother is watching. Yeah. Let's see. Journalism in the mainstream media is dead. Either hired hatchet jobs or activists posing as journalists. I don't know. I disagree that journalism is totally dead in mainstream media, but it's definitely starting to go closer to life support. That's for sure. And it's not totally because everybody's just like a terrible person. There are a lot of people who actually are still in the business for the right reasons and really do want to do a good job. It's just getting harder and harder to do that with the time constraints, with the resources available. Part of the reason I've said this before that I left was because I was trying to cover these really complicated topics and I just didn't have enough time to do it. I had a couple hours a day to really understand what was going on. And sometimes I get to the end of the day and I really didn't, frankly, have a firm grasp of what I was reporting on. So what I would do so that I didn't say anything wrong was I would just keep everything just very superficial because I didn't want to like come out and say, this guy sucks and that person's awesome or whatever. I wasn't there to judge anyway, but you'll hear like people like trying to build a case. Like I didn't do any of that stuff because I was like, I don't really totally know sometimes. who is right and who is wrong, because I just have not had the time to really dig into this topic. So I would either do stories that were just very shallow, like you didn't really have to worry about that there was no controversy, or I would keep the story very superficial because I like didn't want to make any accusations or make any claims in my reports that I couldn't follow up with very firm evidence. And it was just very difficult to get to that point. And so there are a lot of journalists who are facing that kind of just sort of like race to the end of the day, can't get the resources they need to do the right job. And so it's not always the way that people think about. I mean, there certainly is, like, don't get me wrong, there certainly is hubris and disconnection from like the average person and political bias and all that stuff. And especially like, I think the higher you get up with like the corporate talking heads on the cable news shows, like gets even worse in that regard. But like your local news journalists, there's still a lot of really great ones out there. Again, the system is set up in some cases for them to not succeed in the way that they used to be able to years ago, because they're just not given the time and the support to do a good job. Let's see, I'll take a couple more questions. Oh yeah, somebody asked about like live streams and about more regularity. So I'm going to try to keep to a Sunday live stream schedule. Every Sunday I say we're going to go live at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It has never happened yet, but maybe someday I'm going to get to the 10 a.m. So mark your calendars for like somewhere between 10 and 1 Pacific time, because with like the kiddo and just the technical difficulties that I still deal with, I do have somebody who's been amazing that's been helping me out when he can. I didn't want to bother him today because it's a holiday, and he does a great job. So like there are far fewer technical difficulties when I'm not running the show by myself. But I've been trying, that's what I'm going to try to aim for, is 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings for live streams. And if I can't get it on by 10, like 10:30, 11, that would be my goal. For 2021, it's going to be a lot of this, a lot more just like digging in. I'm sure we're going to have a ton to talk about with COVID, with the, the executive, like everything, everything's happening right now. Like what happens with like just the lockdowns, and what happens with the federal government, and, or what happens with Trump and Biden. Like there's just going to be a ton to watch as the year ends and then moving into 2021. I frankly am not a political reporter, so I've been very careful to not just like do straight up political stuff. Again, I've been very, clear on my like background as an environmental reporter, but I did cross politics as an environmental reporter, so I've seen it, but again as like a local reporter, not a White House correspondent. So I'm interested really in the censorship movement, because you're going to start seeing more and more, I think, as we go into 2021. You're going to start seeing more calls for lockdowns of the social media companies. I'm nervous about, as I posted in my last video, I'm a little nervous about how this election is going to be fuel for fire for people to say that we should lock down these organizations even more. I think we're already seeing, I actually saw something yesterday about how Facebook, I believe, and Twitter, these social media platforms are going to start prioritizing information that comes from these sort of, mainstream outlets. So you're going to be more and more seeing that corporate news outlet as the authority on the social media platforms, as well as in your Google search results. And so just keeping an eye on that is one thing I'm planning to do a lot of. I'm really on this channel, I really am focused on freedom. I guess that's at the end of the day, that's why I quit my job, was for freedom. I realized my number one priority for my career was freedom, and not money, and not even like fulfillment, but for freedom to be able to tell the truth as I have found it, and to support information that allows other people to live out freedom in their own lives. And so wherever that intersects, because even though the environment has been and is one of my greatest journalistic passions, if censorship becomes a regular phenomenon, which it already is, but if it gets locked down even more, hi Lily, then it doesn't matter what my favorite topic is. It's not going to end up out there because it's going to get shut down. And I think those of us who are critiquing the power structures and the establishment out there are very concerned. It's been kind of sad to me that so few journalists are speaking out about this problem. There's like a handful of us who see the walls closing in on us and are like, wait a second, I'm going to stop everything else that I've been reporting on to focus on this, because this is the topic of our era. I really believe that. And if it's not fixed, then it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't really matter what my favorite thing to talk about is, because it won't end up out there for anybody to hear. And just there's so few people out there, journalists, trained journalists, who don't seem to be concerned. Not only are they not concerned, but they're leading the rallying cry for censorship. It's totally mind-boggling to me. I just can't make sense of it, but I'm going to continue being one of those people that is going to shed light on where this is headed, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot to talk about. All right, so let's see. Yeah, this is extremely dangerous to our democracy. That was from my other video, live stream about the Sinclair video. Why not after lunch? The rest of the country is still asleep that early. The rest of the country is still asleep at 10 a.m. Pacific time? No, that's like 1 p.m. East Coast time. Let's see. Seahawks might pose an issue 10 a.m. Sunday. That's true. Well, hopefully you can then catch my live stream after the Seahawks. I like to get the live streams over with in the morning. I really enjoy them, but they're like very kind of like energizing for me. It kind of reminds me of when I was back on television. I can't sleep if I do them at night. I get off of the camera and I'm like, so I have like twitches and stuff. So I like to do them in the morning, because then I can just relax the rest of the day, see the comments later, and then go to bed. Let's see. All my YouTubers have live streams on Sundays, but yours would be earlier. Yeah, I guess that's just when people are watching. They use censorship to get rid of the competition. I agree. That's definitely one of the tactics. Because who cares if people like me get kicked off of YouTube? If you're one of the big mainstream outlets, then you don't have to worry about my critiquing you anymore. Let's see. I would like to see Allison react to that video, the This is Extremely Dangerous to Our Democracy one. I did react to that video. I just did a live stream about that last Sunday. So that should be like 2 videos ago. If you go to my channel, it says like local viral video, news bias video has resurfaced. Check that video, because that is my reaction to it. Let's see. Yeah, baby. Yeah, she's very talkative. The censorship is a very dangerous path we are on. I agree. I am thankful for you and your reporting, Allison. Thanks, Melissa. D-Rock, awesome. Check it out. Yeah, definitely check out that video if you didn't see it. Let's see. I've lost a lot of faith in U.S. institutions. It's becoming harder to distinguish between them and Chinese or Russian authoritarian ones when it comes to the question of elitist domination and control. Well, I think one of the things that I hope people are paying more attention to is that this, kind of bifurcation between like left and right, I think often, not that there aren't differences. There, of course, are differences. But often people aren't paying, I think, close enough attention to the class issue here, and how there are a lot of people who feel very disenfranchised from, like you said, from the sort of non-voted in elites. And then even the politicians on either side, who people feel like are just, how do you get so rich being like, can somebody explain that to me? I said this in the last live stream, like, there are people who have been caught, like Gavin Newsom, for instance, or like, had to apologize for going to that really expensive French restaurant in the Bay Area. I think that's where it was. And everybody was like focusing on the fact that he was breaking his COVID rules. But what I was sort of curious about was like how expensive his dinner was. I think that somebody commented that the dinners at that place are like $350 beginning. Okay. It just begins at $350. And then if you want to add something else, it's like $75 or $100 extra dollars. And it's funny because like each time one of these politicians gets busted, what I think is more like bewildering is not even that they're like not following their own rules, but that they're not following their rules at places that are now described as like exclusive or luxury. And I'm like, why are these people going to all these exclusive luxury places? Like, anybody gonna ask that question? Because that's what I want to know about. Thank you, Allison. You are the very best. Lovely baby Lily too. Yes, you can all hear her. It's time for her to take a nap, and then we're gonna cook some dinner and hopefully have Thanksgiving. Let's see. Inslee Getting Rich has no clue what Apple maggots mean to Washington State's economy. They were all hospital lobbyists. Yes, they were all they were like, I think, Washington Medical Association, or sorry, not Washington, American. You're right. It was a medical like lobbyist group, and that's where they were at dinner for. Thank think it was a birthday party. We're in the end times, aka literally living in Revelations. It could be. I have no idea, but I'll be on YouTube for the very bitter end. So let's see if that happens. Rules for thee, not for me, Gavin Newsom. It was a dinner with lobbyist friends. Yes, it was. Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people don't necessarily realize is that, you know, you can keep arguing, I guess, with each other. Like, I have a friend, guys. I was going to do a total separate video about this, and I probably will because it's towards the end of my live stream, and a lot of people may not make it to this point. But I have a friend who is a journalist who will not date. Well, I'll say this. She originally wouldn't date anyone who had voted for Trump. Okay. And now at least she'll date a Republican, but can't vote for Trump. And it's funny because like if she sees this, she'll probably kill me, but she's like, she's old enough. She's like really wants a family. And she, you know, to me, it's like, it's so oversimplified to just look at somebody's party affiliation for how they vote without understanding how they got there. And I think both of the parties are in some cases the situation they're in because they look at it like that, like you know, you're not one of us and you just must be a crazy person. Like I was reading you in the last video I did from that article in The Atlantic where she describes how there are now reality-based information outlets. And then there are the sort of La La Land information outlets. Of course, who do you think are the reality-based information outlets? They're all of the mainline establishment organizations. Those are the reality-based ones. And the rest of us here are in La La Land. So I just think it's really unfortunate how oversimplified this sort of political conversation. And truly that to me was something that I noticed with the Trump administration. The coverage of the Trump administration was how few journalists were really in touch with the phenomenon of Trump, how this all transpired, and then the coverage of him, and how that's created this sort of alternate universe of media and an increased distrust in journalists. And still we're like pointing fingers at the American public as if they had played no part in that. You know, I was just like, again, that was another one of those cases where there were like a few of us sitting on the sidelines like, guys, don't you see the role that we have played in this? Like, it's time to sort of, you know, take stock of the mistakes that we're making right now and stop, you know, this hysteria that we're creating that, you know, is leading people to literally like divorce their family members and not have a very firm grasp on why we have the situations that we have today. It really doesn't take that much effort. You can find people who think differently than you and talk to them. And if you have an open mind, you'll get to where you want to get with your understanding of the world around you. It takes really in today's world, even though, yes, we are all able to end up in these echo chambers because of the way the algorithms work and whatnot. It's also never been easier to find information that's divergent if you actually want to find it. I don't know if this is going to be the case next year, but we have this amazing thing called the internet that even though it has all these problems, like we can find people who are different than us. I'm able to watch YouTube channels that have widely divergent viewpoints and I learn a ton from them. And, you know, 15 years ago, I would never have had that option. I would have just had the mainstream news organizations and whatever they wanted to tell me. So let's see here. Lots of QAnon questions. Honestly, I was called QAnon myself for saying that actually all I did was post Glenn Greenwald's article about leaving The Intercept and leaving The Intercept over censorship. His you know, how he said he was censored by his editors over the Hunter Biden story because I just posted that and made a comment about how journalists are leaving these big outlets claiming that they were being, you know, censored and not allowed to tell the truth about certain stories. That made me QAnon, apparently. So, yes, Lily to mom, here, hold my milk. Now watch this. Yeah. We call it her White Russian because, like, if I have a glass of wine, she has her White Russian. Get it? Anyway, and then when we get super chats, we call it her milk money. So, all right, everybody. I hope you have a great night and a great Thanksgiving. I am going to be signing off soon. I'm just going to run through a little bit more of these questions, make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Again, the super chats are going to Orphan Relief and Rescue and to Vision House. And I will post the links in the description if you guys are interested in that. And Yes, you need to have a guest interview with Lily sometime. I want to do that. I really want to have more with Lily because she's so stinking cute. I'm biased, but I think she is. I just get a little freaked out about kids on the internet these days. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I struggle with that a lot. That's why I don't post a ton of pictures of her where you can like see her face and stuff, because I'm a little freaked out about, I mean, her being able to consent to that and everything. Like, you see these kids on the internet now where their parents are making tons of money off of them, and like the kids don't really know what they're doing or they're talking about. They don't know the gravity of the situation of being on the internet. And it may seem fun, but there's a lot of dark side to the internet. And so I do get a little freaked out about that as a parent. I'm old, so I can go out in a ball of fire. I don't care. I'll take the comment section and deal with it. But Lily's so young. I don't want her to turn out like Lindsay Lohan, if you know what I mean. Okay. Yes. Let's see. You have our permission to do your hair how you like. Thank you. OMG media bias. Fair enough. I am worried about mine too. Yes. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. All right, guys. Well, I guess I'll see you on the next one. I think we're going to do a live stream on Sunday. I'm going to try to do a live stream on Sunday again. I was saying that. Oh, one other thing is that we're probably going to try to get the Airstream content ramped up next year. And our Airstream renovation for our off-grid move, we're hoping that next year we'll be able to finally buy our own property and start our own homestead and everything. And so I do have a sleeper channel right now that I am building for release soon with the Airstream renovation and whatnot. And then that way, if you just want to see Airstream renovation, you can watch that. If you just like the news stuff, you can watch that. Or if you like both, you can watch both of them. And you could just sign off of all other YouTube channels if you want and just watch Allison Morrow content to your heart's content, because there will be tons of it out there eventually. I just have to get that going. Okay, Satchel, thank you for the super chat. Thanks, Allison. Yeah, do your best to keep your family as private as possible. Thanks for donating to the kids. Have a great Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you so much for the super chats. Guys, again, Orphan Relief and Rescue and Vision House, and I am going to sign off. So, hey, if, yes, no, he does not have a channel. Does my husband have a channel? Not yet, but he says he's going to have a channel soon. So as soon as he does, he will be promoted on the channel, obviously, because no one loves nepotism more than I do right here on YouTube, right? Because I always, hey, if he'll come on and he'll be on my channel and give you guys explanations for what he sees going on in the world for free, I'll take it. I will make him my I guess he would be my chief of staff, maybe. Would that be his position? I don't know. But yeah, he's planning on doing that too. It's just we're like so busy being new parents, and it's not easy running a YouTube channel. It's a whole business, and I don't get to do it full time quite yet, but the more support I get on the channel and the folks who support me over on Patreon and send the PayPals and everything like that is slowly getting me to the point where it'll be able to be a full-time job, and then I can do more of these, hopefully daily uploads and whatnot. That's my ultimate goal, is to be able to do it every day. Just trying to get the hang of like how to do it and what, you know, from an editing standpoint, what I can handle every day, because I do it all by myself now. You know, I'm the editor, I'm the producer, though Lynn does help me out a lot with the technical side of things, because there's no way that if I weren't married to him that I would be able to do this, because I just do not have the technical production side of the brain. I'm the creator, you know, I'm the talent, as they say, right? That's what they say. You're the talent. So whether you think I'm talented or not, I am going to let you guys go have your Thanksgiving. Okay, it was really great to see everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. I'll see you on Sunday. Be good to everybody around you. And happy Thanksgiving. I'll see you next time. Bye.